Welcome back to our study called Two Nations, and we're looking at Genesis chapter 25, going through verses 12 through 34 to the end of the chapter. Today we're going to focus in on 12 through 18, which we've called Generations of Ishmael. Generations of Ishmael. So let's begin with a promise fulfilled. For us to see the importance of this account of the descendants of Ishmael, we have to go back in time. In chapter 16 of Genesis, we read of Sarah and Hagar, that battle that they had between each other. Sarah gives Hagar to Abraham as a concubine to give her a child. That was her plan. That was the scheme, right? Hagar conceives, and then she lords it over Sarah. And so everything kind of backfires. Sarah gets angry. She tells Abraham to kick Hagar out. Abraham says, you can do whatever you want. It's your slave. You can do whatever you want with her. So Sarah kicks Hagar out. God comes to Hagar in the wilderness and promises Hagar that her offspring would multiply so that they couldn't even be numbered. And that's a great promise. Like, here you are, you've been cast out of your home. You don't know what's going to happen. You're out in the wilderness. What's going to become of you? And God comes along and says, hey, your offspring, not only will you survive this, but your offspring will be innumerable. So if you fast forward to chapter 17, where God tells Abraham that Sarah would have a son, and that son was the one that God chose to fulfill the promise. Abraham says, that Ishmael might live before you. What does God say? Nope. God says no. But he says, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. Now you go back to the passage that we're looking at today. We see Moses recording the fact that indeed the blessing and promise of God for Ishmael did come true. The promise God made to Abraham concerning his son was fulfilled. Here they are. There's the 12 names of the 12 princes right there. Exactly as God promised. God came through. Ishmael has 12 sons, 12 princes in his family. And there you go. God is faithful to his promises. Now, let's take a look at how there's a division here, right? If you go back to chapter 16, go back there again, take a look at that. Besides being blessed with many descendants, what does the Lord say concerning who Ishmael would be? This is important. He says, he shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He shall dwell over against his kindred. And so, back to chapter 25, verse 18, we see here a description of where the family of Ishmael lived, and then it says, he settled what? Over against his kinsmen. Happened just as God said it would. Ishmael and his descendants would be separate from Isaac and Keturah's children as well. He would be a source of trouble for Isaac's kids throughout the generations. God had chosen Isaac, not Ishmael, or Keturah's children for that matter, to be the recipient of the covenant of promise. God chose to divide, to separate Isaac from his relatives, just as he chose the same for Abraham. Remember, Abraham had to be separate from his relatives. He had to be separate from those who were still living in Mesopotamia. God called him out to leave his kindred behind. God does the same thing for Isaac. Even though there's lots of kindred around, he has to remain separate from them. And so that's what we see here. This text shows that the separation idea was real and it was continuing on. It wasn't just for Abraham. The separation between Isaac and his descendants and everyone else really was real. And even of his really blood relatives, he had to be separated from them. Isn't it interesting, though, that Ishmael was blessed by God, but that blessing didn't change him? Think about it. This is really the difference between what we call common grace and saving grace. Common grace is given to all people. As Jesus said, the Father makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. Ishmael received some special common grace. I mean, he did. But it was not saving grace. I mean, having kids, having lots of kids, that is a common grace that whether you follow God or you don't, you can have that common grace. You know, for some, it is a special one because not everyone receives it equally. Not everyone has access to that. But it is a common grace that it falls on those who follow God and those who don't. But it was not a saving grace. Having the 12 tribes, having the 12 princes was not saving. It's not a saving grace. He remained a wild donkey of a man, as it says. The blessing of 12 princes did not lead to the changing of his soul. James Smith once said, "A sinner out of hell can never have any reason to complain. Everything short of hell is mercy." I was thinking what is also true is that everything you have that is not hell is really grace, right? Because what do you deserve? You deserve hell. That's what you deserve. But anything you would get besides that, anything that's good, anything that is, and really anything that you would receive other than hell is a display of God's grace. So the fact that you can breathe today, yes, that's God's grace. That's God's common grace, right? God's common grace is everywhere. And people just take it for granted every single day. All day long. So people often complain about how they don't think that, the punishment of sin, which is hell, is equal to sin. They see, well, I'm just sinning a little bit. I just told a lie. That doesn't deserve eternal punishment. Okay. I guess you could make, I that makes sense, I guess, coming from that worldview. But think about it. You are ungrateful for everything that you received. And everything that you receive, really life itself, every second of life, is something that you did not deserve. And therefore it's a gift, it's God's grace to you. And if you're not thankful for every second of every single day, then what are you saying? I don't care. Thanks for the gift, but, forget you. So really you're sinning against God just by your existence without being thankful. You're not thankful at all for what God has done, which is the right response. That is the correct response to God's grace, His common grace, the continual common grace. And so think about it, your whole life then really stands as an affront to the holy God. Just because you're taking everything from Him, but then pretending like He's given nothing to you, or even pretending that He's not there. That is ridiculous. So, yeah, your whole life then really becomes one giant sin. So, the punishment definitely is, the punishment is equal to the sin. It has to be infinite, it has to be, ongoing, it has to be eternal punishment. It can't end. In that sense, it's infinite because it doesn't end. It has to be eternal. There are bounds on it. There are levels of punishment. But yet, it is equal to the offense. It has to keep going because you spent your entire life, your whole existence will be against God. So, yeah, think about that. It's like He said, everything short of hell is mercy. Yeah, it's true. We'll come back next time and we'll take a look at the next section and we'll take a look how the two peoples are divided. And that's verses 19 through 26.